It's your boy, Deacon MacArthur, Past Master MacArthur, Brother MacArthur, whatever you want to call me. But I always remember you can call me the child of the Most High God. It's Christmas season. It's this Christmas holiday season. We praising God. We thanking God that we made it through another season. We thanking God for grace and mercy. We thanking God for His presence in our lives, God. You may not, we may not have gotten what we wanted, but we got life. We thank God for being born on December 25th. We thanking God. We praising God. Just want to jump on. I ain't been on in a minute. Just want to jump on here real quick. Been a word that's been burning in my spirit, in my soul this year. I just wanted to give a little encouraging word for the end of the year, and just wanted to I'll be reading out of Hebrews 6, the ninth through the 14th verses. And it reads, Dear friends, even though we are talking this way, we really don't believe it applies to you. We are confident that you are meant for better things, things that come without salvation. For God is not unjust. He will not forget how hard you work for Him and how you have shown your love to Him by caring for other believers as you still do. Our great desire is that you will keep on loving others as long as life lasts in order to make certain that you will that in order to make certain that what you hope for will come true. Then you will not become spiritually dull and indifferent. Instead, you will follow the example of those who are going to inherit God's promises because of their faith and endurance. For example, there was God's promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater to swear by, God took an oath in his own name, saying, I will certainly bless you and I will multiply your descendants beyond number. Mm. I'm going to still out on that moment. And then out of Hebrews 5 and 10, starting with the ninth verse, it says, In this way, God qualified him as a perfect high priest, and he became the source of an eternal salvation for all those who obey him. And God designed him to be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Just gonna let you sit loud on that moment for the moment right now. And Matthew 23, 1 through 12, and it reads, and I'm reading out of the New King James Version. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you. Don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to erase the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. And they love to sit at the head table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you only have one teacher, and all of you don't address and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your father. For you have only one teacher, the Messiah. Let me back up. Let me back up again. Let me start back over. At the eighth verse, it says, Do not let anyone call you rabbi, for you only have one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you only have one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Mm, There's a sea light on that moment. Just want to come to you today about the grave robbers. The enemy within, the greatest barrier to maximizing potential, aren't, aren't external, lack of resources or opportunities, but internal, fear and mediocrity. Defining that threat, fear paralyzes action, mediocrity settles for good enough, but still your unborn destiny. You have the fear that you have first point is fear, the thief of action. You have fear of failure, the belief that a mistake defines your destiny. Monroe, Miles Monroe teaches failure is feedback, not a funeral. Action dispels fear. You have the fear of success, the dread of a new responsibility or the attention that comes with success. It pushes people back into their comfort zone. The fear of unknown, the potential requires venturing outside the familiar. God's power, 2 Timothy 1 and 7, is the antidote, replacing fear with power for action, love for people, and sound mind for vision. The second point is mediocrity, the comfort zone trap. The good is the enemy of the best. Mediocrity is settling for being merely good enough when you were created for exceptional impact. The comparison snare, the mediocrity often arises from comparing yourself to others' low standards instead of to your own divine potential. Your standard is your purpose, not your peer group. The anti-retirement principle, Miles Monroe key teaching is you should never retire from purpose. True fulfillment means consistently challenging yourself to grow until you die empty. The price of manipulation. Lessons from Jacob's tragedy. The focus chapters are Genesis 25, that's his birthright chapter, Genesis 27, the blessing theft, and Genesis 29 through 31, Jacob's manipulated. The foundation. The foundation failure, undervaluing the covenant in Genesis 25. The story begins with a profound failure of character, the undervaluing of the covenant promise for immediate temporary gratification. Miles Monroe's thesis, character versus gift, and the discipline versus desire. Esau's flaw. Esau, the firstborn, sells his birthright, his covenant promise and legacy, for a bowl of red lentil stew. This is a failure of self control, discipline, and a profound lack of vigilance. Genesis 25 and 35, Genesis 25, 34b. Let's take a moment and read that for a moment. Genesis 25 and 34. And it reads, Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. He showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. Excuse me. Thus Esau despised his birthright. The lesson is we live ruled by immediate we live the lesson is we live we live ruled by immediate desire. That's the stew. Instead of discipline, the covenant, we despise the future God has promised us. Second point is the battleground. Manipulation as the enemy of integrity out of Genesis 27. Jacob's actions, with Rebekah's help, perfectly illustrates the spirit of manipulation. Defeating the spirit of control, the Jezebel Samson compromise and integrity versus reputation. The family of deception. Rebecca's plan. She manipulates the situation by listening to her own will over waiting for God's plan, violating the covenant blueprint. Jacob's lie, he uses deception and disguises in goatskins to steal the blessing. He prioritizes reputation, what Isaac thinks he is, over integrity, who he actually is. The result, the lie immediately fractures the family and forces Jacob to flee, beginning his amid trajectory, a life on the run. Genesis 25 and 30, Genesis 27 and 35. Isaac speaking to Esau, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. The lesson is manipulation always leads to isolation and consequence, even if the perceived goal, the blessing, is achieved. The consequence, the manipulator becomes the manipulated in Genesis 29 to 31. Jacob's life becomes a mirror. He flees from one manipulator, Esau, only to fall under the control of another, Laban, demonstrating the spiritual law of sowing and reaping. Amid the trajectory and the partnership accountability, lack thereof, Laban's control, Jacob works 7 years for Rachel, only to be deceived and given Leah. He is forced into 20 years of labor where Laban continually changes his wages. In Genesis 31 and 7, the spiritual law. Jacob, who used deceit to steal his brother's blessing, now suffers deceit in his own marriage and wages. Genesis 29 and 25, Jacob speaking to Laban after the deception. What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you with Rachel? Did I not serve you for Rachel? When then have you deceived me? The lesson is when we build our house on manipulation, we invite the same spirit to attack our own structure. The only way to break the cycle is to turn back to God, amending the trajectory. Point number 4 is the redemption. God upholds the covenant despite flawed character. Despite the family's failures, God remains faithful to the promise made to Abraham. The master builder's mandate out of 2 Samuel 7 and 29. The ram and lamb principle. God doesn't bless Jacob's actions, but he honors his covenant, his word, his blueprint. The encounter, the turning point is Jacob's wrestling match with God. Genesis 32. He literally wrestles for his life, and his identity is changed from Jacob, the supplanter, manipulator, to Israel. he who struggles with God. The lesson is the path back to the covenant requires us to wrestle with God in humility and surrender, relinquishing self control until our character is broken and remade by Him. This sequence from Genesis provides powerful real world examples showing exactly the why Dr. Miles Monroe's character principles and the need for spiritual discipline are essential for anyone hoping to build a house that will continue forever before God. The unbreakable house, a covenant mandate. 2 Samuel 7:29. Now therefore may it please you to bless the house of your servant, that it may continue forever before you. For you, O Lord God, have spoken, and this is the meat of the unbreakable house message. In the kingdom of God, specifically, Jeffrey Jeffrey Price Jr.'s book, Pioneering with Purpose, this is where the assignment is either won or lost. Many people understand the assignment, the gift, and the desire, but they don't have the infrastructure, the character, or discipline to fulfill it. The infrastructure of a pioneer, character versus gift. Your gift is what you do, your character is who you are. Let me say that again. Your gift is what you do. Your character is who you are. The gift, the door opener. Your gift is given by God to make room for you. Proverbs 18:16. It is your talent, singing, preaching, leading, or creating. The character, the room keeper. The character is the weight bearing wall of your house. The danger, as the saying goes, your gift will take you where your character cannot keep you. Joshua 4, the stones represent character. They are heavy, they are heavy, they are solid, they are lasting. The crossing was the gift, a miracle, but the memorial was the character, to the commitment to remember. The pioneering principle, the pioneer doesn't just rely on the miracle, the gift, they rely on the memorial, the character. Point number two is discipline versus desire. Desire is why, desire is your why. Desire is your why. Discipline is your how. The desire, the spark. The desire is the flow of hope. It brings hunger to see your family blessed, to build the business, or to reach the community is the fire. The discipline, the fireplace. Without discipline, the fire of desire will burn the house down. Discipline is the character. Discipline is the structure that directs your energy. The non exempt reality. As we discussed, a non exempt worker cannot rely on wanting to work. They have to punch the clock. Discipline is the daily overtime you put in when the desire isn't there. Connecting to your identity, the attribute, the eternal struggle, the name connection, the gift. I want to be a bearer of Christ, which is Christopher. Character, I must be a man of law, integrity, which is Lamont. Desire, I have a divine hunger for more, which is Diane. Discipline, I must have the strength to stay the course, which is MacArthur. A sermon nugget is the bridge of Second Chronicles 15:7. Be strong and do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. Weak hands equal high desire and low discipline. You want it, but you won't work for it. Strong hands equal gift plus character. You have the talent to cross the Jordan and the character carry the stone. Understand the assignment. God didn't call you to be gifted. He called you to be faithful. Jacob had the gift of the birthright, but he had to wrestle in Genesis 32 until his character matched his call. Elisha had the desire for double portion, but he had to have the discipline to stay with Elijah until the very end. The final thought: if you have $1 million gift but a 10-cent character, your house will move when the storms the house your house will move when the storms come. But if you build with discipline of the lawman and the character of the Christ bearer, you will create an unbreakable house that will stand for generations. The non-exempt spirit tracking the time of your life. To pioneer with purpose, you must realize that you are not on a flat rate spiritual journey. You are accountable for every moment God gives you, accountable for every minute. The punch card. In a workplace, a non exempt employee must work their time. In the kingdom, we are told to redeem the time because the days are evil. Ephesians 5 and 16. The principle: you are non exempt from the clock. You cannot waste hours in manipulation or more marshy thinking and expect the reward of a pioneer. Joshua didn't wait days to set the stones. He did it immediately. Joshua 4 and 3. He knew that his time in the miracle was on the clock. The overtime of grace, extra work equal extra reward. The beauty of being non-exempt is that extra work is recognized. 2 Chronicles 15 and 7. Be strong and do not let your hands be weak, for your work will be rewarded. The application is: when you go the extra mile to forgive, when you fast beyond your comfort zone, and when you labor to build a kingdom over time, God, the master employer, is not exempt from his promise to pay you back for your faithfulness. The application in the Unbreakable House: the work of the pioneer Christopher Lamont MacArthur. As a bearer of Christ and a lawman, you are a specialized laborer. You are not exempt from the struggle. Mm. You are a salaried servant guaranteed the inheritance of heaven, but a non-exempt worker required to show the fruit of your labor. Defeating the exempt mentality. The spirit of manipulation often tries to convince us we are exempt from the rules. Laban tried to be exempt from his contract with Jacob. Esau thought he was exempt from the discipline of his birthright. The truth: in God's house, the salary is grace, but the performance review is based on character and potential. The closing inspiration: the kingdom payroll. Church, don't look for an exempt lifestyle where you could just sit on your title and ignore your tasks. You are non-exempt. God is watching every hour you spend building your house. He is tracking every stone you carry out of the Jordan. The world might not pay you for your hidden prayers or your secret fasts, but you serve a God who sees in secret and rewards openly. Your overtime in spirit, the extra prayer, the extra act of integrity is being recorded in the books of heaven. Be strong, for your work shall be rewarded. The foundation: character as covenant security. We are all master builders, tasked with constructing a house, our family, ministry, and legacy. The Bible reveals that the security of this house is not in size, but in its foundation. The supremacy of character. Dr. Miles Monroe taught us a profound principle. Your gift will make room for you, but only your character will keep you there. The contrast is Samson had a mighty gift, strength, but his lack of character and self control led to ruin. The mandate, above all else, we must guard our heart because it is the wellspring of life. Proverbs 4:23. Your private integrity is the security system of your public destiny. The failure of the undervalued covenant. The moment we value temporary desire over future promise, the foundations crack. The Esau flaw in Genesis 25. Esau sold his birthright, his covenant, his destiny, his house for a single bowl of stew. That was catastrophic failure of discipline and an act of discipline and an act of despising the future God had promised from Genesis 25 to 34. The battleground, defeating the spirit of manipulation. Once the foundation is secure, we must face the enemy that seeks to exploit our weaknesses and derail our destiny, the spirit of manipulation. This spirit is rooted in deceit and fear. Attack the attack of deceit. Manipulation is the enemy's attempt to focus an outcome outside of God's timing. Jacob's lie in Genesis 27. Jacob and Rebekah used deceit and disguise to steal a blessing, prioritizing reputation over integrity. The result, isolation, had a life on the run. The consequence, when Jacob fled, he was immediately subjected to the very thing he did to others. For 20 years, he was deceived and manipulated, but Laban proving that manipulation only invites the same spirit into your own house. Genesis 29 and 25. The defense of discernment. The only way to break the cycle of manipulation is through spiritual sight. But the prophet Elisha saw the unseen reality. When Elisha's servant saw the surrounding enemy and was filled with fear, Elisha prayed not for rescue, but for sight. The revelation, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. God opened the servant's eyes to see the mountain filled with chariots of fire. The enemy's plot is powerless when we see God's provision. The strategy, amending the trajectory through discipline. Our defense against manipulation and our commitment to character are sustained by active spiritual discipline. The surrender of self control, the true act of spiritual surrender, is not losing control, but exchanging our flawed, limited human will, self control, for perfect, spirit led control. Galatians 5:23. The prophet's model, Nehemiah 1 and 11. Nehemiah did not begin building the broken walls with human strategy. He began the covenant prayer and fasting. It began with covenant prayer and fasting, confessing sin, and realigning his will with God's established blueprint before asking for success. The power of the true fast. Fasting is not a bribe. It is a weapon that clarifies our vision and breaks spiritual strongholds. The purpose is not that this is not is not this is not this the fast that I choose to loose the bonds of wickedness. Let the oppressed go free. Isaiah 58:6. It breaks the strongholds of fear and greed that fuel manipulation. The mandate, Jesus said, the days will come when the bridegroom was gone, and then they will fast. Matthew 9 and 15. It is an expectation. expectation, expectation, expectation for spiritual clarity and power. The conclusion, securing the eternal reward. We are called to trust God's process, not our own prowess. The instruction out of Psalms 37, 1 and 8. Do not fret over those who seem to prosper for deceit. Instead, trust in the Lord and do good. Delight yourself in the Lord. The answer to temptation and manipulation is consistent discipline and trust. The command, 2 Chronicles 20 and 20. After calling a fast, the, the prophet and you will be and you shall be established. Believe his prophet, believe his prophets, and you shall prosper. Let me say that again. The command, 2 Chronicles 20:20. After calling a fast, the prophet delivers the final enduring mandate. Believe in the Lord your God, and you shall be established. Believe his prophets, and you shall prosper. The promise, 2 Chronicles 15:7. Our commitment to character and covenant is not in vain. It requires us to be strong and do not let our hands be weak, because this commitment secures the promise, for your work shall be rewarded. The call to action today, we stop building with deceit, Jacob. We stop building with deceit, Jacob, and start building with covenant courage, Nehemiah. We refuse to sell our birthright for temporary stew, Esau. Instead, let us surrender our flawed self will, trust the unseen chariots of fire, and commit to the discipline that ensures the blessing of our house will continue forever before God. In conclusion, activating the power, the choice every day is a choice between moving forward in faith or remaining stuck in fear. The call to action, identify one area where fear is holding you back and take one deliberate small action today to release the power God has given you. Die empty. Release through action. The principle of work. Dr. Miles Monroe taught that potential taught that potential, by its very nature, is the dormant power. It has no value until it is released. The greatest threat to your potential is possession without release. Work is the mechanism for release. Monroe argues that work is God's gift to humanity. It is the central instrument for discovering and releasing your potential. You do not find your purpose by sitting still, you find it in motion through the demanding process of creation and contribution. The principle, you are not paid for the potential you possess, but for the potential you manifest. A seed is not a tree until it is planted, worked, and watered. Likewise, your abilities remain seed formed until you apply them through deliberate effort. Mediocrity versus maximism. Mediocrity versus maximum. Mediocrity is not failing to meet someone else's standard. It's failing to meet your own potential. It is settling for less than your best. To die empty requires you to sustain effort until you die. As Monroe taught, you should continually find things you can do that you have not yet done until the day you leave the earth. The process of maximizing is a lifelong installment plan of daily payments. The dangers of inaction. Unused gifts are trophy. If you bury your talent like the servant in the biblical parable of the talents, it does not grow, it is lost. Monroe challenged us. The only measure of your life is your contribution. If you are not pouring yourself out, you are robbing the world of the solution or innovation that God placed inside you to solve a problem. Regarding sending to your email. Regarding since, oh, I don't want to see that. So the key action is Elisha warns the king of Israel repeatedly, saying, "Do not pass this place, for the Amorites are coming down there." The theological point is it proves that no council, plot, or conspiracy formed in secret against God's covenant people can succeed because God knows the secret thought before it is uttered. The reality of spiritual protection. The story validates the biblical truth that believers are surrounded and protected by unseen spiritual armies. Elisha's servant, terrified by visual armoring army, is shown the invisible reality. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire and all around Elisha. The practical point, this serves as a potential encouragement that those who are with us are more than those who are with them, shifting the focus from the limited physical threat to the limitless spiritual resource. Demonstration of mercy and divine welfare. The conclusion is an unexpected lesson in how God prefers to handle defeated enemies. The key action is Elisha prays for the Amorites' eyes to be struck with blindness, leads the entire captured army into Samaria, and then instructs the king of Israel to feed them and send them home rather than execute them. Theological point, Elisha's action is profound, demonstrating of mercy and uncovenant warfare. This act of kindness breaks the cycle of violence and causes the Aramean raiding bands to cease their attacks for a time. The passage unfolds in three dramatic stages. The secret is revealed in verses 8. The secret is revealed. The king of Aram, Syria, believes his military campaign is failing due to a traitor in his ranks. His servants inform him that the problem is not a human spy, but the prophet Elisha, who is revealing his private strategic counsel to the king of Israel. This established the prophet as the source of Israel's security. The unseen army, the Armenian king, sends a large force to capture Elisha in Dothan. Elisha's servant sees the massive visible enemy's force and panics. Elisha, however, remains calm because he operates by sight of the invisible, the chariots of fire. His prayer grants the servant spiritual sight, overcoming his overcoming his fear. This is the climax of faith in the story. The meal of mercy, divine confusion. Elisha prays for the Armenian army to be struck with blindness, a form of confusion or delusion, leading them away from Dothan. The capturing. Elisha leads the entire confused army directly into the heart of Samaria, Israel's capital. The command. Instead of allowing the king of Israel to kill them, Elisha commands a feast to be prepared. Set food and water before them that they may eat and drink and go to their master. The result, the kindness shown disarms the enemy more effectively than violence ever could, leading to a temporary cessation of the raiding parties. It establishes a powerful moral high ground for Israel. The acronym FORGIVE, forget oppressive responses, generational curses, insignificant towards victory to eternity, serves as the spiritual blueprint for amending the trajectory and achieving the unbreakable house. The strategy, amending the trajectory through forgive. This section moves beyond the what fasting into the how of the discipline needed for to maintain character and defeat the cycle of manipulation. Jacob and Laban. Discipline of forgive is the key to the spiritual sight and freedom. The enemy of destiny, conquering fear and mediocrity. 2 Timothy 1 and 7. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Forgive, defined as forget oppressive responses. This means consciously choosing to reject the normal human response of fear, revenge, or manipulation. The Jacob and Laban cycle, then faced with a threat, it is the act of not fretting. Psalms 37 and 1. Generational curses, insignificant, acknowledging the covenant through Christ, supersedes and breaks all past inherent negative patterns. The curse of Esau's short-sightedness, and Jacob's deception is insignificant to stop the blessing of Abraham. Victory to eternity, the goal is not just temporary relief, but securing the long term covenant promise, the unbreakable house that shall continue forever before you. 2 Samuel 7 and 29. Conclusion, securing eternal reward through forgive. Forgive becomes the final active step of faith that leads to the reward of 2 Chronicles 15 and 7. The action of faith, the act of forgiveness, forgive, is the most powerful act of relinquishing self control, human justice, and embracing spirit led control, divine justice. The reward of sight, when we forgive, our spiritual eyes are open, allowing us to see the chariots of fire, 2 Kings 6 and 17, and trust the prophetic word. We stop focusing on the past wound and start seeing the future promise. The foundation, the character versus talent, Monroe. Esau's failure was an inability to forget his immediate desire for the eternal promise. Defeating the battleground to freedom manipulation, forgive, is the spiritual weapon that breaks the generational curses of deceit. The strategy, discipline, fasting, and surrender. Forgive is the practical fruit of fasting, the loosing of the bonds. Isaiah 58 and 6. The conclusion, covenant reward and perseverance. By practicing forgive, we ensure our efforts lead to victory to eternity. 2 Chronicles 15 and 7. This acronym provides the essential missing link between the eternal discipline of fasting and the external freedom required to live out the covenant promise. The core idea of dying empty is that success is not measured by what you acquire, but by what you deploy. This ties directly into the reward of your work. 2 Chronicles 15 and 7, and the final securing of unbreakable house of 2 Samuel 7:29. The final transition from forgiveness to fulfillment. Use the forgive acronym as the bridge. Transition. We have seen the spirit of manipulation lead. We have seen that the spirit of manipulation leads to isolation and bitterness. Jacob under Laban. But the Bible calls us to forgive, to forget oppressive responses, so the generational curses are insignificant towards victory to eternity. Now we are free from the past that is the ultimate promise of this freedom. It is to fulfill our potential. Monroe's challenge to tragedy of the full cemetery introduced the concept of dying empty as the ultimate goal of the covenant living. The problem, according to Dr. Monroe, the richest place on earth is the cemetery because in it lie millions of inventions, books, songs, and gifts that were never released. These people died full. The summary question is: if you die full of potential, you have failed the mandate of stewardship. Our goal is to ensure that the unbreakable house, our life, is not protected, but is filled with the treasures of service and purpose before it is closed. The mandate, turning character into contribution. Connect the internal principles you discussed earlier to the external demonstration of potential. Monroe's keys to dying empty. Biblical justification. Discover your purpose. Covenant blueprint. Stop manipulating. Jacob and start seeking the master builder's will. Nehemiah 1 and 11. The stones of remembrance. Pioneering a purposeful legacy. Joshua 4 1 through 24. The 12 memorial stones. The book focuses is from Jeffrey Price Jr.'s Pioneering with Purpose, the concept of vision, planning, and legacy. I'm going to stop right there for the sake of time. So I want you to leave us with the flow of hope declaration. Today, we declare that the flow of hope is active in this house. Like Diane will shine with divine light, like Christopher will carry the Christ who is our hope, like Joshua will pick up stones while the water is still flowing. We understand the assignment. We are non-exempt from the greatness God placed in us. We will not leave this world with our songs unsung or our stones uncarried. We will die empty. We will live full of we will live full of the flow of hope. The flow of hope is a powerful, inventive phrase. Depending on what you're looking for, it can represent a poetic concept, a charitable initiative, or even a visual metaphor for resilience. To help you best, I've explored a few ways this theme usually comes to life. The metaphorical meaning. In psychology and philosophy, the flow of hope refers to the continuous movement of positive expectation, even though even through low points. The river, hope is often compared to a river. It can be diverted or slowed by obstacles, hardship, but eventually finds a path forward through persistence. The connection, it suggests that hope isn't a static feeling you have, but a dynamic process you participate in by taking small actions toward a better future. Creative expressions. If you're looking for inspirations for projecting or writing, here are a few ways to interpret the flow. Artistic, a flow representation of light moving through darkness, like Voluminous is deep water, literary, a stream of consciousness, poem where thoughts shift from despair to gradual optimism, musical, a crescendo that starts with a single quiet note, the spark and builds into full sympathy, the flow, the community and charity, the pioneer's challenge, the transition from the old wilderness wandering to the new covenant fulfillment is a critical moment. It's easy to get excited about the future, but a true pioneer knows the past be must be anchored. True pioneering isn't just about moving forward, it's about establishing an anchor so that the next generation knows how and why you move. The command immediately after the miracle, God commands Joshua to take 12 men, one from each tribe, to retrieve 12 stones from the riverbed where the priest's feet stood firm. The key question is, what did the pioneers in your life what did the pioneers in your life do immediately after the greatest breakthrough? They stopped to build a memorial. The memorial building an anchor against amnesia. The core, Joshua 4 through 8. The core purpose of the stones is simple: to prevent spiritual amnesia, the common failure to remember God's faithfulness. Stones from the riverbed out of verses 5 and 7. The stones were taken from the precise location of the miracle, the impossible place. The pioneering principle, every purpose has every the pioneer principle, every great purpose has an origin point, a moment of crisis where God proved himself. Your purpose is validated by your impossible history. The symbolism, the stones represent the burden of the past, the wilderness journey now transformed into the proof of God's power, the dry ground. We must take difficult lessons of the past and make them into testimonies. The memorial site, two sites, two sets of stones were created, one at Gilgal, the campsite, and one in the middle of the river. The visible and invisible, the stones in the riverbed were invisible to the future generations, known only to those who cross. The stones at Gilgal were visible at a constant as a were visible, a constant reminder. A purposeful pioneer, a true pioneer, builds a legacy, both visible works, the successes you share, and the invisible faith, the sacrifices and miracles only you and God know. The legacy, answering the next generation, out of Joshua 4:21 and 24. This is the ultimate purpose of the entire exercise, the why of pioneer. The interrogative covenant. God knew the question. God knew the question that would one day be asked. When your children ask their fathers, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, "What do these stones mean?" Jeffrey Price Jr.'s focus, the vision planning. The pioneer must plan their legacy around the inevitable questions of the future. If your purpose isn't visible enough to provoke a question, it won't be significant enough to teach a lesson. The pioneer's mandate, we must live our lives in such a way that our successes are undeniable and cause our children to stop and ask, what does this mean? The answer of the power, the answer is the declaration of the miracle. Israel crossed over the Jordan on the dry ground. The stones are the physical proof of the covenant's faithfulness. They show the children, they show the children that God works the same way he worked for their ancestors. The external goal, the stones were erected that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Our purpose is not for our fame, but for the glory of the master builder. Conclusion: Are you building? Are you building stones or sand? A pioneer does not cross rivers; they build memorials. The challenge: What memorial stone are you placing today in your character, your business, your family, or your ministry? That will answer the questions of the next generation. The final action: Don't let your greatest victories become memories. Convert them into testimony, legacy, and purpose so that the faith you live will become the foundation for the future they build. The final call to action, the conclusion, bringing all the things together under the banner of stewardship. We conclude today with a question for the master builder. What are you still holding on to? Is it the bitterness of an oppressive response that you have not forgiven? Is it the laziness that comes from undervaluing your birthright, Esau's stew? The reward of building the unbreakable house is not just that it continues, but that it continues fully deployed. You have the character foundation. You have the character foundation. You have the spiritual sight. You have the discipline. Now be strong and do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. 2 Chronicles 15 and 7. Your reward is seeing your potential. Your reward is seeing your potential fully expressed before you take your final breath. Do not die full, live to be empty. So I want you to be blessed today, and do not die full, but live to be empty. So be blessed on today.